ଓଡ଼ିଆ ରହସ୍ୟବାଦୀ କାବ୍ୟ ପରମ୍ପରାର ବୌଦ୍ଧ ଧାରା ଚର୍ଯାପଦରୁ ଭୀମଭୋଇଙ୍କ ପଦାବଳୀ ଯାଏଁ ବ୍ୟାପ୍ତ ପ୍ରାୟ 1200 ବର୍ଷ। ସପ୍ତମରୁ ଊନବିଂଶ ଶତାବ୍ଦୀ ଭିତରେ ଶୂନ୍ୟ ସାଧନାର ଜୀବନ ଜିଜ୍ଞାସା ଏବେ ବି ପ୍ରଶ୍ନାକୁଳ, ଏବେ ବି ଅନୁତ୍ତରିତ। କିଏ ଜାଣିଛି ଜୀବନର ଅର୍ଥ? କିଏ ବା ଜାଣିଛି ମରଣର ଅର୍ଥ? ଅନ୍ଧାରରୁ ଅନ୍ଧାରକୁ ଯିବାର ଘନ ରହସ୍ୟରେ ଓଡ଼ିଆ ସିଦ୍ଧ କବିଙ୍କ ପଦାବଳୀ ଧ୍ୟାନର ଘୋର ନୀରବତାରେ ପଚାରି ଚାଲିଥିଲେ ଅସଂଖ୍ୟ ପ୍ରଶ୍ନ ଏଇଭଳି। ଦେହ ଆଉ ଦେହରେ ନଥିଲା, ବିଦେହରେ ପଡ଼ିଥିଲା ଛାୟାପଥ ଭଳି ଜ୍ୟୋତିଷ୍ମାନ ଜିଜ୍ଞାସାର ଆଲୋକ। ସେଇ ଆଲୋକର ପଥ, ସେଇ ଦେହ, ସେଇ ମନୋରଥ। ଧ୍ୟାନୀର ଆଖିରେ ପରିବ୍ୟାପ୍ତ ବୁଦ୍ଧ ସିଦ୍ଧନାଥ। ଓଡ଼ିଆ ବଜ୍ରଯାନ ଓ ସହଜ ଯାନର ଧାରାରେ ଏ ଗୀତି ପ୍ରବାହ ଆଜି ଆମକୁ କେଉଁ ଅଜ୍ଞାତ ସମୁଦ୍ର ଗର୍ଭକୁ ନେଇଯିବ, କିଏ କହିବ?
This is the legendary Odia poet Haraprasad Das, who gave expression to his spiritual yearnings and aspirations through his poetic works. On the Odia literary horizon, Haraprasad Das is seen at the forefront of the avant-garde movement, reviving the tone and tenor of Odia literary tradition that goes back 1,000 years. Over the years, he has been setting new standards and new benchmarks in poetry, prose, and literary criticism. He perhaps is the only poet who excels in classical and epic poetry, has set standards in fiction writing, and is a renowned ethnic historian whose works make the Odia people proud.
The dark sanctum. Why is it so dark? Why is it so dark here? Why? The Meru, our axial mountain, in sleep, as the face and its mirror wake up to the black ray, and in primal sweep, I can hear the refrain of a call from afar. I can see the faces of stones marked. I can see the faces of stones marked, the offerings of blood. Yes. Why is it so dark? Why? Inside the sanctum here, why should it be when the gods are in the stones and the stones are in repose on the room's altar? Why should it be dark? Why is it so dark here?
Why is it so dark? Poet Haraprasad Das is asking the readers without himself giving an answer, thus leaving the issue open for the readers to make their own interpretation. When the gods are in stones and the stones are in repose on the room's altar, why is it so dark?
You are worshipping the pathar. मंदिर में पत्थर है, पत्थर के अंदर कौन है? My perpetual quest has been this, that we worship an image, a body made of stone. Repose all our faith in that. But it doesn't emit light unless your faith is complete.
Essentially a poet, Haraprasad Das' poetry is the melting pot of different and divergent elements like faith and agnosticism, the romantic and the cerebral. His strength lies in his different angles of light and shadow, of reflection and reality. His poems with multiple meanings are therefore open to different interpretations. The poet does not thrust his own conviction on anyone.
In terms of my faith, I am a believer. Just as I am a liver of life, I am also a believer in a faith, and the faith is God. I do not know where is He. And if you ask me whether I am religious or agnostic, I would say I am basically a spiritual person. I would consider spirituality to be more essential for me than religiosity.
Admittedly, the most complete writer who has risen from the local to national and finally to the global level, he enjoys an iconic status as the idiom maker of the avant-garde, neoclassical, modernist and post-modern Odia writer. Glimpses into his genius can be seen through his various facets as poet, prose writer, translator, columnist, orator, critic and thinker.
His poems are excellent, and apart from poems, his analysis of events is superb. We don't have a person whose analysis is comparable to his. He is very good that way. Analysis is generally published in Sambad. We don't have an analyst like him of events in Odia. He is incomparable.
Indian culture is reflected in his work very well. Logically argument in his special identity. A new dimension of history has been unveiled in his creations. He is a multi-talented scholar. He has extensive knowledge of Odia, English and Hindi. He has given a new identity to Odia literature and Odia language.
He is a creative person of its own type. You cannot compare him with others. In his thinking process, in his creativity, in his writing, poetry, you cannot compare with others.
In yet another poem from Dark Sanctum entitled This Body, he says, "Touch it if you can, between the ash and the yellow bridal sash. This golden hue, this uncertain flash, should be enough for you could pare it to shreds with your woodcutter's axe." And goes on to say, or you wish you could set it to song with that fire born of flint, or could let it go afloat. This is the poet's interpretation of the body in different ways. Either you can see it materialistically, bridal sash or the golden hue, or being romantic, you could set it to a song. In all his poems, one gets a mix of the ideal and the bizarre, which makes him a versatile poet who's grounded on the earth and yet imaginative to the core.
The contribution of Haraprasad Das to Odia literature is phenomenal. Though he is considered as a major poet of Odia literature, his contribution in other fields like novels and fictions are also remarkable. He is an original thinker who has been writing columns in different newspapers since last 2 decades. His subjects range from politics to history, culture and tradition, and also philosophy. As a fiction writer, he is a trendsetter who has written some experimental stories as well as novels. Haraprasad Das has also translated Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Gitanjali of Rabindranath Tagore among other works.
Haraprasad Das's life is a story of struggles. He was born into a family of decadent and impoverished aristocrats on 23rd January 1945 in Gajrajpur in the erstwhile Cuttack district, now Jagatsinghpur. He grew up in a tribal environment where the schools were self-sufficient. But for formal education, he had to join a regular government school where he grew into a very distinguished student, a record holder of sorts. Joining the Ravenshaw College, now a university, in 1961, he pursued a graduate course in humanities. This was contrary to the order of the day when all bright students joined the law stream. Significantly, his career as a writer opened up here rather early at the age of 16. Haraprasad Das published his first poem in the prestigious journal Jhankar, edited by Dr. Hare Krishna Mehtab, and then in Diganta, edited by Manoj Das. Listen to me, river, open your door. I have returned to you at last from a distant exile, with no honor to salvage, with no love to squander. An orphan asundered, I see my image behind your door. Haraprasad Das did his master's degree in political science from Utkal University with specialization in political theory and international affairs. It was at this juncture that he chose his career. He was tempted by the civil service, which he joined in 1968. The poet in him adjusted to the humdrum of bureaucracy. Haraprasad Das got married in 1971. His wife Sandhya was then a student of MA Philosophy in the university. But what was remarkable, that she was then a celebrity in her own right. She had won the National Award in Acting for her role in the Odia classic Adina Megha, or The Untimely Rain, and a holder of a master's degree in Hindustani vocal. She is also an accomplished stage artist. His son was born in 1972 when his wife dropped the exam and decided to be a homemaker. His family life has been a great source for his creativity. Undoubtedly versatile, Haraprasad Das is also a metaphysical poet, although his concerns are with the material reality of the contemporary lives. Looking back, he thinks it was always there within him. Haraprasad Das has written poems on Shiva, Vishnu, Surya, Ganapati, Durga, Hanuman and Saraswati. But his only regret is that he could not write on a scale befitting the Hindu gods and goddesses. Shiva in Manhattan is the collection of poems in English which was published in 2013. The poems traverse a wide range of affinities and concerns with the poetic voice of the urban bilingual Indian. He made it a point not to make his poems romantic, but felt that the sensuous underpinnings of the relationship could be redefined in spiritual terms. Greatly influenced by tantric Buddhism, Haraprasad Das has penned 8 songs which have been sung by Sushmita Das.
Jogini maya bini pirati jane bisama se pirati kiye na jane boila mani boila padma boila
Titled Dehavideha, the poems explore the tantric aspect of Buddhism that had Odisha under its spell between the 7th to 12th centuries AD. The 8 songs in the album have been composed by Om Prakash Mahanti with a modern touch. The mystic poems written by Haraprasad Das seek to recreate the resonance of metaphors expressed in the tantric form of Buddhism.
It is a kind of a whisper which has to be interpreted. It's a whisper which talks about the body in one go and in the next move demolishes it. So Deha Videha was starting with the body and ending with the annihilation of the body.
Haraprasad Das is a multifaceted personality who was brilliant right from his school days. He has been a successful bureaucrat who has served the nation in different capacities. Growing up from a remote village of Gajrajpur in Odisha, Haraprasad grew up to the national and soon to the global level that immensely contributed to enriching his creative work. One of his poetic works, Harmonium Re Todi, which received the Sarla Puraskar, explores an entire gamut of local metaphors.
So, Harmonium Re Todi actually he portrays the chanda, the meter of human life. There is no actually pattern, no chanda in life. We have lost all chandas. So, the classical raga and classical chanda is not present now. The life is chandahara. We have lost all chandas.
It is remarkable that his first book of poetry, Alokita Vanvasa or Enlightened Exile, and his first book of short fiction, 3 Hours of the Orient, were published in 1979 and 1980. Alokita Vanvasa broke new ground in Odia poetic diction. 3 Hours of Orient was a takeoff on French Novio-Roman writer Alain Robbe-Grillet. Strangely, around 1981, he chose to stop writing when he had obtained an iconic status. He was not too sure whether he should continue writing. After 10 years of hiatus, again his poetry, Mantra Patha, was released in 1991 that fetched him the Odisha Sahitya Akademi Award. He was honored with the Sahitya Akademi Award for Garbha Gruha, which has been translated into English as Dark Sanctum. Principally a poet, Haraprasad Das has also made considerable contribution to Odia prose as well. His translations and anthropological works make him one of the few complete writers in contemporary India.
Growth of Odia culture, the socio-cultural history of Odisha, his contribution in this area, I think, is unparalleled. Here you may say he is a pioneer, he is a path-breaking man.
His Odia Jatira Jivana Chinta looks at modern Odisha history from the beginning of the 19th century to 1936, when Odisha was created as a separate province. It's a historical sequel to his Odia Jatira Jivana Katha, a mammoth book on Odisha's ethnic history and hail in the state. The third volume is Odia Jatira Jivana Gatha. This is his spectacular work in 2,500 pages, running into 3 volumes, which is the history of the Odia people. These are volumes which he had written over a period of 10 years.
Is one of a beautiful masterpiece that he had written, Odia Jatira Jivan Gatha. So there he had mentioned why the Odia race is not a race of agitationists. Though everyone was leaving everything, every creative writer was leaving everything to Lord Jagannath, but the Odia society missed the flame of agitation, the flame of protest, and the flame of economic advancement. So that is why he said that we lagged behind at that time, and till the advent of the 20th century, or Fakir Mohan Senapati, who was called the doyen of Odia novel and Odia short story writing, then only it started.
Haraprasad Das has two works of epic proportions, Vamsh and Desh. Desh has been praised as the post-modern epic poetry in Indian literature. Desh explores the idea of country.
Well, this I'll tell you, this is entirely a product of my quest for my country when I lived for long times, long stretches abroad.
Vamsh is the recreation of the Mahabharata, which is in the nature of post-modern experimentation that went on to receive the Murti Devi Award of Gyanpith. This work has been rated as the most outstanding modern epic using Mahabharata as the metaphor. It is an experimental poetic work attempting to read between the lines, the great epic of Ved Vyas.
What is the essence of Mahabharata? My reading of Mahabharata, which took me about 7 to 8 years, over a period of time I read almost 2-3 versions of Mahabharata, I felt that it is the curse, Avishap, which is ruling the destiny of man. Man always reaps the adverse results of his karma, his work. If he has done something extremely wrong, iniquitous, cruel, then he has to reap the result, the harvest, and harvest of poison.
Apart, he has 4 translations into Odia to his credit. These are Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore's Nobel Prize winning Gitanjali, Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam in meter, and poems of French poet Arthur Rimbaud, known for his influence on modern arts and literature, which prefigured surrealism. Haraprasad Das' contribution to literary criticism is enormous. In the 1990s, he began writing a regular weekly column each Sunday in the premier Odia daily Sambad. This column was dedicated exclusively to the tradition of modernity in Odia literature. These columns were compiled into 2 volumes titled Adhunika Parampara and Adhunika Samakal. These 2 volumes quietly revolutionized the way of reading literary texts and the way of looking at tradition in literary creativity. The volumes heralded the return of criticism from canon to the text and from the global to the local.
He is a terrific editor too. He was associated with editing of a major Odia literary journal which gets published from Kolkata actually, Prativesi, I mean the neighbor. He was designing each page of that journal minutely. And in that journal, the Prativesi, he published certain young poets like me and some of my friends with editorial critical opinion. Even he critically analyzed as he liked.
Haraprasad Das was immensely attracted towards Urdu poetry, especially Mirza Ghalib, whose spiritual aspect greatly influenced his own poetry. He was also greatly inspired by the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. It is their spiritual aspects that greatly attracted him towards their work. To Haraprasad Das goes the credit of introducing the ghazal form in Odia poetry as well. Haraprasad Das' poetry is not confined to a particular genre, as he can write on anything, abstract or real, sometimes with his intellect guiding his heart, and on other occasions his emotions dominating his mind.
I don't run away from reality. I do not droop my eyes. I am not apologetic. I look at it straight with open eyes and wait until reality blinks. That moment is my moment of poetry.
Haraprasad Das has been honored with several major literary awards that include Rajbhasha Puruskar, Odisha Sahitya Akademi Award, Sahitya Akademi Award, Sarla Puruskar, Murti Devi Award of Bharatiya Gyanpeeth. Despite getting immense recognition all through, Haraprasad Das is continuing with his works as for a poet, there is no looking back. Settled in Bhubaneswar in Odisha, Haraprasad Das devotes most of his time for his literary pursuits, actively contributing to the enrichment of Odia language and literature.